All right, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Live Clean and Fight Dirty podcast. Here live on YouTube, broadcasted every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Your main host, John Hackleman, co-host Angelo Ferrer. What's up? Thanks.
Hey, what's up, man? Just
Oh,
just
sorry.
living the dream, guys.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So today, cutting weight versus losing weight. Sorry about the sound issue. This came up. I've been reading Michael Bisping's book, his life in the UFC. Quitters never win, and it was interesting hearing him go through his life story. And there was something that came up about how he did not know how to cut weight. He said, he lost weight the regular way, and he just started dieting and he went down to 185 when he first made that jump from light to middle, light heavy to middle. He said he didn't cut weight properly. He said he thought he cut weight properly, but he actually lost weight. And he looked at his opponent who was much larger than him, who was cutting weight the right way. And then it made me start thinking, well, what is that? Well, what is cutting weight the right way? And what is the difference between cutting weight and losing weight? And whenever these kind of questions come up to me, I go to the pros and I ask John, what's going on? And I figured, why be selfish and keep this information to myself when we can share with everyone? So, John, enlighten us. What's up? What is the difference between that?
It's a big difference. Like when you say cutting weight, and then you think of the word cutting, like cut down, but you think of losing, you lost it. You're losing the weight; it's gone. And losing weight is something that's more permanent, and cutting weight is something that's very very transient because you only want to cut the weight. Basically you want to cut the weight for like fucking 10 minutes, and then you want to get it as much as you can back again before the fight. You know what I mean? You're going to cut the weight to get on the scale and make the weight, and then you want to start gaining it back as quickly as you can because you want to be as big as your opponent. Size matters in a fight. There's weight classes for a reason, and the bigger person always has the advantage in a fight. So the cutting weight is something. It's a skill, and a lot of places don't like to do it. I think like the one in Japan, the one. It's a fight promotion, and I've
Yeah,
heard there's different
championship. One championship.
and there's some different promotions that think cutting weight is too dangerous. So you can only there's like percentages. It's really bizarre. I think it's really stupid, um, really complicated. It's like saying Mike Tyson hit too hard, so he can only hit a certain percentage of his power because he might hurt the other guy real bad. That to me, that's what limiting cutting weight does, because cutting weight is a skill. It's a skill. Some guys are much better at it. Some guys aren't. And the people that are better at it have a huge advantage when they get in the fight. And people don't think that's fair. Well, what about the guy that's really powerful and he has a knockout punch? Is that fair? You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes people go in with certain anatomical or physiological or psychiatric advantages. So to take that away, the cutting weight is such a skill. It's worked on, and if you do it just right, it's going to come out perfect. If you do it just wrong, you're gonna get sick. You might have to pull out of the fight. But the same holds true with sparring. Like if you don't spar well and you get cut before the fight, you got to pull out of the fight. If you don't spar well, you might get hurt before the fight. You might get knocked out. You got to pull out. So all these things come into play before a fight, and cutting weight is one of them. And the main difference between cutting weight and losing weight is the it's the transient. I mean, it's you want to just cut weight for a sec. So to do that, guess what you can't lose? You can't lose fat. You can't use muscle mass. You don't lose, you don't lose fat really. What you lose when you cut weight is water. And that's why it's transient, and you put it right back as soon as you're done, as soon as your weigh-in's over. I mean, they're waiting for them. You watch some guys; they need to be carried to the scale and like helped off because they're so weak. They cut weight and they just don't feel good. And they get up to the hotel room, boom! It's either an IV or PO liquids that they're starting to rehydrate because cutting weight equals dehydration. You are dehydrated when you cut weight because you're cutting water. You're losing water. You're losing water by restricting intake and by heat, body heat. Whether that heat is from a sauna or making your muscles warmer and heat up by using them. Like some people put on a sauna suit and they get on a treadmill and they just go at a real slow pace because you don't want to get your heart rate up too high while you're cutting weight. You're going to collapse. So you jog, you shadow box, maybe some light rolling, you know, and and uh, and you keep your body heat all in, so you get hotter. And usually that's done by a plastic suit or or even a down jacket with a beanie and you want to get as warm as you can and wait and cut weight. So anyway, so that's what cutting weight is. You want to you want to lose the water. When you're losing weight, maybe you're fat. Maybe you want to lose weight. So you do it slowly and effectively because you don't want to lose so much weight. You definitely don't want to lose water weight. You want to lose the weight for good. You want to lose fat. That's the main thing. So to lose fat, right? Yeah, it has nothing to do with heating up your body and restricting fluid. What it has to do with burning calories. So to burn calories, you have to you have to burn more than you take in. That's the only you have to have a negative calorie balance, right? Or else you're never gonna lose weight. That's what being fat is. You take in more than you put out. If you put out more than you take in, you'll always lose weight. And if you do it correctly, you'll never be fat. It doesn't matter. I mean, metabolism, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter because it does make it easier to lose weight, a fast metabolism. Slow metabolism, some people say, oh, it's my metabolism. I can't lose weight. Eat less. That's all you got to do is eat less. Eat less. Eat less is the way. Take in less than you put out, and you will lose weight no matter what your metabolism is. It is harder that way, but nobody can't lose weight if they like. And look, I'll give you a perfect example. Why in the United States, the fattest people we have are the poorest. In any other country, that's never the case. You go to Africa, you go to India, you go to the Middle East, some of the poorest countries. The poorest people are skin and bone. They're never fat. Only in America are the fattest people the poorest. I don't know what that says about us as a country. I think I think the word decadence comes to mind. But okay, so to cut weight, to cut weight now, you go in, you going out towards the fight. Say you have a fight coming up. So you have a fight coming up in say 6 weeks. What you start to do is you start taking smaller portions of food. Some people are everybody's on different diets. Some people swear by protein. They cut back on fat and carbs. Some people want to do more carbs because they get more energy, they feel, so they cut back on protein and fat. Some people do mainly fat, keto, then they cut back on other things. It doesn't really matter. It matters what works best for you. What really matters is that you take in less calories than you put out, and you're going to start losing weight. And you have to do that slowly, or you can starve, right? You don't want to starve. When you're cutting weight, you get dehydrated, but there's a really short window when you dehydrate. 24 hours, you're not doing any liquid. When you're losing weight, I mean, you could be losing weight for like 5, 6 weeks. You can't go without food for that long, right? So that is a slow progression going down. You take in less than you put out. So you got to train, work out, and not eat that much. And then if you don't train at all, you got to eat even less. And if you train really hard, you can eat a little more. But there always has to be a negative intake to outtake of food. And that is how you lose weight. What do we think?
So, at home tactical defense comments. Good evening. This seems pretty self-explanatory. Now, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to complicate things just a little more here. It's self. I almost want to say the science of losing weight, like you just said, can be self-explanatory. Less calories. Yeah, I can get that. But the science of trying to make sure you cut weight for a fight is definitely not self-explanatory. Um,
No, it's a skill that people that are good at this skill have a much better chance of winning the fight than the people that aren't. If all things are equal, everything else equal, the person that can cut weight is going to win. The person that can cut weight the best out of the two is going to win the fight. So it's an art, it's a skill, it's done over time. Some wrestlers have been doing it since the beginning of their careers. Some boxers do it. I mean, I remember fighting in the Gold Gloves, and there was a long line, and we had to stand there with a cup, and we're spitting in the cup because we wanted to lose every ounce that we could before we jumped on that scale. We've been cutting all the water weight, right? I've been jogging for the last couple of days with down jackets on Venice Beach, or back home I do a Capilani Park a couple times, but everybody's sweating. And then, a day out, or some people do it 2 days out. That's crazy. They cut out water, all liquids. They cut out liquids, and then they just start eating, right? Cut back on their food, but they still got to eat. And then right before the fight, they do that bath, the night before the fight, they do a hot bath and they cover themselves with an emergency blanket. Then when they get too hot in there, they get out and their trainers wrap them with blankets or towels, and they just sit there and they just sweat, sweat, sweat. And it's a skill and it's painful. And you have to be Glover. Glover's probably the worst I've ever seen, that he could take that pain going from, sometimes they're losing like 15 pounds, like fucking overnight. It's fucking crazy. I'll give you the worst one ever was, it was a 135, Henan Barao. Henan Barao. Remember him? He was in the UFC. I think he fought for a title. He kind of looked like Jose Aldo a little bit. I think they were from the same camp, but he almost died. He looked like he was dead. They like helped him on the scale, took him off, and he was like barely walk. He looked like a skeleton. I mean, every rib, he just looked terrible. So he gets up to the room, and back then they could do IVs right after the weigh-in, and we give him a couple liters of depends, either normal saline, half saline, even lactated ringers, a lot of different things. But it was the reason we do that instead of just drinking the fluid is because you can get more in their body. Drinking that much, a lot of people are going to get a stomach ache because they've been cutting weight and not drinking any. So if you just start guzzling water like you think they got to, they're going to get sick and they're going to get sluggish and they're going to puke. And oh, that's Henan Pro, yeah. When you do the IV, it makes the water goes in at an easier pace and it gets through your body, right? So it's not all in your stomach where you're going to get sick. It goes right to your bloodstream. So this guy looked at it. He goes on the bed, and nobody could get the IV because he had no veins. He had no. He was like, so I found a vein. So I got a vein. They called me up to his room. I got a vein because they knew I was a good IV guy because I'm a registered nurse. So I get his IV, right? And my wife's up there with me because we were at the fight. I think it was I forgot who was fighting that night. It might have been Ramsey or Court McGee. I forget. But anyway, so give this guy the IV, and he's laying there like a corpse. My wife was so upset; she thought he was dead. And then like after the first bag, he like had a smile on his face. It's a liter. Then after the second liter of, I think I was just putting in normal saline. Man, he sat up and he was, man, I feel good, coach. I feel great now. He looked like a regular person because when the water comes out of your cells and you're that dehydrated, your body is not happy. It's not in a good place. You, I mean, you can go like a month without food, but you can only go like a couple days without fluid, and you're gonna die. You can go like 2 weeks without eating, and you'll be okay. You're not gonna be comfortable, but you're not gonna die. You know what I mean? So fluid is so important, and there's such a fine line when you're dehydrating somebody on purpose. Usually they do it by accident and die, right? Like if they're on a fucking deserted island with no fucking, they can't get water or anything because you can't drink seawater. But anyway, so that's the difference, and that's how I feel about that. What do you guys think?
Now,
We got
I have
any comments?
no more comments, but I have a lot of questions. Oh, myself. So, what you're talking about for the rehydrating with an IV, what's that called? Didn't they start testing for that recently? I think it was like a BOP testing or POP testing. I can't remember what it's called. Where they're looking
Yeah, yeah. They're looking for like the plastic of the IV or so. I don't know what they're looking for. It's weird,
looking for the
but no,
plastic.
it's illegal. So yeah, so I don't think anyone does anymore that I know of. I don't know why it's illegal when, I think they just pick and choose what's legal and what's not because it's a great way to rehydrate. It should not be illegal. It could end up saving somebody. So, but so I don't know why it's illegal. I mean, you can go to fucking Vegas and get drunk as a skunk, and that you hung over the next day. They'll give you an IV to feel better. You can go to infusion, centers all over now. We have one in our town where they'll just give you multivitamins or, just you feel like you're hungover and you want to feel better. IVs are very important. Bypassing the stomach to give fluids is done in the medical field all the time. So I don't know why it's illegal, but it is. So I don't know anyone that does it anymore. But yeah, so I don't know why it's illegal. There's no danger. There's no danger to an IV over the benefits. The danger, the benefits outweigh the danger.
And then my other question. So we've already covered like the professional end. Now, what about the amateur end where people have the same day weigh-ins? Like if you're not a professional fighter and you got to go through the whole amateur circuit and you're going through sports and stuff, all those places they have the fight on the same day and they have the weigh-ins on the same day too. And that's
Yeah,
what do you recommend for people in that?
I think since IVs are illegal, unless you can do that and IV them up real quick, it can't be near the same. Like it's a weight class. It's at least a weight class. Like if you can cut weight to middleweight, or let's go lower. Like if you can cut really hard to say lightweight, right? By 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 just if it's the same day, and you can make it to lightweight, right? You can cut down to featherweight if you could do a day off. If you can do it the next day weigh in, right? You'll be able to fight one weight class below. Like if you're an amateur, you might be fighting as a middleweight, you know, but as a light as a if you go up, I mean, if you go up to pros, you could if you have a next day weigh-in. So if you have the whole 36 hours, you could actually fight one full weight class below what you fought as an amateur. So that's kind of a rule of thumb. Like if you see a real good amateur and he's a light heavyweight, right? Then when he goes pro, he could probably be a middleweight.
Okay. And so you're pretty much saying as an amateur, you shouldn't do that. If you're fighting on the same day, if you have same day weigh-ins, you shouldn't be cutting an entire weight class. Maybe what? I what would you recommend for the cut? Like
Well, there's no cut. That's why there's a weight loss,
weight loss.
right? So the weight cut is the water is dehydration. The weight loss is fat, right? So you want to lose weight, and if you know that you have a fight coming up in 6 weeks, you can slowly decrease what you're eating, and then you can make the weight. But and you do try to water down like maybe 12 hours before the fight, the weigh-in, but not nearly to the degree you're going to, because you don't have the time to rehydrate. You don't have the time to get stronger even by food. So if you're fighting the day you weigh in, then you got to pretty much weigh in close to what you're going to fight at. When you're doing it the next day, I see 20 pounds between the time they weigh in and get on the scale. You can never do that same day. And I'm never going to say never because some freaks can actually do it. And those are the guys that have a huge advantage in amateur, and they'll have even a bigger advantage in pro.
There it is. So
So, yeah.
as we wrap up that section of the podcast, quick summary: 6 weeks out, cut food and calories, slow progression, and depends on your training and output. Now, switching gears to losing weight for your average person. Now, you already went over that, like you said earlier. Seems self-explanatory. Eat less, train more. But I think one thing that particularly most of the people watching this are martial artists.
Yeah.
A lot of misconceptions in martial arts to lose weight. And depending on the art that you practice, I'm not going to answer my own question. I'm just going to throw it out to you because I already have an answer. I'm pretty sure you have it similar in mind. So let's say let's say you practice an art, whatever art it is, whether it's karate and you're doing kata all day, or you're doing forms, or you're doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and you're rolling all the time. And you're getting older, you're gaining some weight. So you tell yourself, I'm just going to practice more. I'm just going to do more sparring. I'm just going to do more roll. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, I'm going to do more rolling. If you're a karate guy, I'm just going to kick the bag more, punch the bag more, and do more kata to try to lose weight. What is your recommendation for people that are in their art, that are trying to lose weight with their art?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're not going to lose weight doing kata. You're going to, you're, I don't know what you're going to do. There's so many things I want to say, but I'm not going to say them. Um, But if you're training hard, like hitting the bag and drilling and sparring and stuff, and you don't want to fight, I mean, then I would say that's a great start. But then you should have another one that has nothing to do with, nothing really to do with your art, but it gets you moving at a specific rate. Sometimes you want a slower, longer pace, like say a 5K. You can do a 5K on the bag because an average 5K is like 20 some minutes, right? Uh, so let's just say you do a 5K you have a 5K. Sunday's my 5K bag day. So I just do a half an hour of bag work, just nothing extreme. I'm not trying to sprint. I can talk the whole time, but you can tell I'm working because I am breathing heavier. I'm not just going, but I am hitting the bag to where it's like a jog. So I do a half an hour jog on Sunday. Instead of jogging a 10K or rowing a 10K, I heavy bag a 10K and just go a half an hour of that. Sometimes I want to sprint. So I'll do sprints. I'll do 4 punches and a sprawl over and over on the bag. Try to do that 100 times in a row. So that gets your heart rate way up, right? And you're going to burn a lot of calories. Um, but it's a little different calorie burn than the slower, longer jog. The fast twitch speed, you build up more muscle. The slower one, you burn more fat, but you also, tear up your muscles because it needs to eat something when you're going slow, a slow paced jog. When you're sprinting, I mean, just look at a sprinter and now look at a marathon runner. Sprinter, you build more muscle because it's anaerobic. You're using the Krebs cycle. You're trying to get that ATP going. You want as much energy as you can get, and it builds up the muscle. You're not burning as much because you just worked out really hard in 4 minutes or 6 minutes or 12 minutes. But the jog, right? You're going half an hour, maybe even a longer, so it starts burning your fat and your muscle more. So you do lose weight both ways. And the best way to do that as a martial artist is both. Like I do two longer, slower days, and then I do, two or three hard sprinting days that are shorter but more explosive. And then on both of those days, I put in my skill drills. Some guys want to do the kata. Okay, you can take some Midol and do some katas if that's what you want. But our guys, they would rather just, their days after that work, they rather do the bag work, drilling, sparring, rolling, real stuff that's really martial artsy, right? And then we add in some anaerobic or aerobic burpee days, you know, uh, 8 count days, medicine ball days, something where we're going to get our heart rate up. So we mix that. You can't, I'm not going to say you can't, but I've seen that people that only want to do their art and they think that art gets them in top shape, unless you're a swimmer or a runner, you need other physical workouts to get your conditioning up because fighting won't do it. Just fighting alone won't do it. Whether you're rolling with jujitsu, you're doing throws, you're doing sparring, with punching and kicking, you can't do that to get in shape. You have to do something else because that contact will get you hurt if you do it hard enough and long enough, like you would a jog or burpees or something like that. So it's just not sustainable.
And so when you were saying about the bag work, are you doing 30 minutes nonstop? Like you're not doing like intervals of like 3 minutes with a 30-second break. You're just going 30 minutes
Yeah,
of
just 30 minutes straight. My Yeah, and then some days in class, I do like 5 minutes just punching and elbows, 5 minutes just knees and kicks, and then 5 minutes or 10 minutes freestyle a little of everything. And the reason I do that is conditioning, yes, but also I want to focus on the kicks for one whole round. Because if it's all freestyle, then sometimes people just do their favorite more and then neglect the other. So when I say kicks for 5 minutes, just kicks, then and then sometimes I'll even specify the kicks, like, all right, front kick, and then they do front kick for 2 or 3 minutes. Then I say, okay, left hooks. Then they do left hooks for 2 minutes. Then I do right hooks. I call out something, and they just do that for an allotted period of time. So so they're just focusing on that one strike or whatever that they wouldn't be doing that much. Like I wouldn't be doing a jab. If somebody just said like freestyle in the bag, like when I was training, I would very seldom throw a jab when I'm hitting the bag or when I was fighting. Almost everything was hooks and stuff like that. So now if I had me as a trainer back then, I would have developed my specific all my tool set, my skill set a lot more than I did. Instead of my trainer just going, "Okay, go hit the bag." You know what I mean? So I feel like that's a good way to make your people better. But then come fight time, they're still going to focus on their skills, their favorite, right? But at least they've worked on the other stuff, so they'll have a little better jab. Where because I've given them 2 minutes, they just had to hit the bag, and they do that consistently throughout their training. So I want them to focus on certain things. Sometimes I just freestyle, do your thing, whatever you want to do, and then that's when I want them to focus on their strengths. Always focus on the strengths, but I want them to work on their weaknesses. Bing.
So we have some comments that came in. Bobby G says hello.
Right.
Hello, Bobby.
What's up, Bobby? What's up,
Roberto
Bobby?
9 says hello. What's up, Roberto?
Hey,
Jeremy Brooks says Ohana. Ohana, right back at you, brother.
hey.
Question. Bobby asks, what's the strength and conditioning for MMA compared to boxing? Also, nice channel, thanks. So what I guess the question is, what's the strength and conditioning difference between MMA and boxing? How is it different?
Do you mean the strength and conditioning that you have to have, or the strength and conditioning program that you should be practicing?
He didn't
Did they
specify,
specify?
so
Okay,
I'll let you do
okay,
that.
so if I specify what they have to have, this will say what they have to train more. So they have to they have to have they have to spend more time on the ground if they're a stand-up guy. More time on the ground. They have to, whether they like it or not, whether they don't ever want to go on the ground and they purposely don't want to, they're gonna have to stay on the ground, consistently, like Chuck did. He didn't like going down. They have to be on the bottom a lot, and they have to get comfortable getting up. That's by drilling, and then sometimes freestyling. But a lot of drilling because I don't want them getting hurt. That's where they get hurt the most because they want to go this way. The other guy's pulling them this way. Next thing you know, there's an arm there. Now it's just it's torn rotator cuff or their knee or something like that. So we put them in bad positions, right, on the ground more. Okay. Say the guy is a jiu-jitsu guy, he's not good at takedowns. So now, okay, we're gonna drill his takedowns over and over and over and over. We do some freestyle now. We don't want to do too much freestyle because when they're defending the takedowns, that's when people get hurt. So we drill that, drill that, drill that, then give them some freestyle along the way. So they're having to practice that. So you have to. It's more of a strength thing. Hitting, striking is more of a power thing. Like you got power for a knockout, but you have to have a lot of strength to hold someone in certain positions, or even to get out of certain positions. That takes power and strength because they have to explode out, but sometimes they have to power out. Right? Very seldom do you need the strength in striking because you're not powering the punch. You're not strengthening the punch. The punch is coming from power. It's explosive and it's powerful. It's not strength. So strength training is great because sometimes there's a clinch, right? Whether it's boxing, kickboxing, or MMA, sometimes there's a clinch. So we do want strength in all of our sports, but there's a lot more strength in wrestling than there is in striking. There's a lot more power in striking than there is on ground fighting. And now with wrestling, there's an equal amount of both. So jiu-jitsu, I think you need more strength. Striking, you need more power. And then wrestling, you need both. But in all of them, you need both. You just need more, a lot more power in striking, a lot more strength in jiu-jitsu, and then it's about even in wrestling. That answer?
Yeah, I think that answered it. He said he did
So
specify.
so here's the answer. So you got to train accordingly. So you got to work on your strength more. If you're an MMA fighter, you have to work a lot more strength than you would have if you were a boxer. Okay, and you have to work on more power than you would have if you're a jiu-jitsu guy. You have to work on your power more, mainly in your striking, and the striker mainly in your jiu-jitsu, right?
Now we have some more questions that came in, and Bobby has some more. Bobby, we're going to get back to your next question too. William John asks, "What's your take on supplementing something like barbell training, like practicing a martial art and following a program like Mark Ripto's starting strength program?"
Yeah, I think it's really really good for some people. Like Glover is cleaning, jerking all the time. He can do muscle ups. He did a lot of kettlebell swings, a lot of that stuff. But you got to remember the guys like Mark Ripito, right? That's all they do. So they do a lot of it, and if you try to keep up with their pace or their or their workout program, they're not taking into consideration that you're spending a couple hours every fucking day grappling and punching and moving and clinching and slamming and taking down. They don't take that into consideration, like CrossFit doesn't. That's why you should never do CrossFit if you're doing MMA. You should do bits and pieces of CrossFit. That's what CrossFit is. Um, but if you train that much, that intensely and that long, you're going to be injured all the time. So Mark Ripeto's, it's great, but just cut it in like a quarter. Take like a quarter of it and do that, and that combined with all the other stuff you're doing will give you extra strength and power because his stuff is great and so is CrossFit. But we only want to do about a quarter of what they do, a quarter. So if he's doing an hour, do about 15 minutes. You know what I mean? If they're doing full body weight, full, power as much as you can do one rep. Don't, that's do a quarter rep. So don't ever try to match what they're doing because I'll tell you what, they're never going to try to match what we're doing. So if you do that, you're going to get hurt. It's great for what it is, but you have to modify it as a martial artist. Don't think you can do a CrossFit workout and then a full MMA workout because now you're going to get hurt during the MMA one or the CrossFit one, but it's not good. Like if a CrossFit athlete, like if he was he was trying to win the CrossFit Games, he's not doing a full MMA workout every day. He's going to focus on his main sport, right? Yeah.
So,
What else?
Will, that was William's question. So, Bobby's next question is, how do you prevent a heart attack or a stroke with unfit students in the gym while training? So, if you have a beginner who's really out of shape, how do you scale that for them?
I don't at all. In fact, we have a very, very, very extensive waiver, and I also talk to them. Like I say, like I have a guy that his conditioning doesn't look good, so I go, bro, it looks like you might have a fucking heart problem, or you might have some kind of cardiovascular issue, maybe your lungs or something. But you need, because if you don't, you're very weak mentally. So you're either very weak mentally, then that's okay. Then you just try to overcome that. But I'm worried if you have a heart problem or a lung problem. So I need you to get a signed thing from your doctor that says you are in good cardiovascular pulmonary health. And they might put you on you might have to take a stress test or something like that. But I tell them that. So with that said, now here, sign the waiver, right? The waiver includes cardiovascular pulmonary disease. I have not. I have checked with a doctor, and so they're going to sign that. And I told them, and that's as far as it's going to go. And if they want to keep training, and that's they're grown fucking adults, and so they're going to do it. If it was a kid, I would take them out of class. But if it's an adult and they signed the paper and said they did get checked out, I'm not going to go follow up with the doctor. I'm not going to do that. This is a grown ass man or a grown ass woman or whatever. So I'm just going to have them sign it. They signed it, whether they went or not. I'm gonna expect them to keep up with the class. And I've had people drop before. I've had people puke. I've had people, pretend they're having a heart stuff. I've had people with broken ribs and punctured lungs and shit like that, but that's from getting hit. But from just the training, I've seen that a little bit, but I've never seen a guy completely fall out.
Um, Bobby G also asks, is the kickboxing stance more square than the side stance of boxing?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, depends who he's fighting, but if you're expecting leg kicks, you're a lot more squared up than you are in boxing. And if you're a karate guy with a side kick, you're even more, you know, to the most. You know what I mean?
Yeah, even more side stance because of that. William says, I should add this for a hobbyist. Not a pro fighter. Oh, his question is for a hobbyist, not a pro fighter. Okay, got it. Bobby G asks his final question, I think. The MMA fighters' hands are down more than boxers. Um, the boxer's right to prevent a takedown. Are is the head movement less effective? So, as a boxer doing MMA, is head movement less effective in MMA when compared to boxing? And is there such a thing as too much head movement making you vulnerable to kicks?
You can't have too much head movement. You can't have too much head movement. Just think of your head as a target, or just think of a target and you want to shoot it, and it's like 20 yards, and you want to shoot this target and it's moving. Okay. Now, what if it's just barely moving, right? And what if it's not moving at all, right? If it's not moving at all, you can hit it almost every time. If it's moving somewhat, you're going to have a harder time hitting. But if it's moving all erratically all over the place, you're going to have a much harder target to hit. So whether you're the boxer, you're the wrestler, you're the jiu-jitsu guy, you're the kickboxer, if you're in a fight where there's punches to your face, head movement is never a bad thing. You never hear Joe Rogan say, "Whoa, that guy moves his head too much." You're never going to hear that. So you cannot move your head too much. You can't.
All right. So Bobby says, thanks, coaches. So no,
Thank you.
appreciate the questions. So I think we're at the wrap up here. Again, this is the Live Clean and Fight Dirty podcast here on YouTube, coming out every week on Wednesday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. Today's topic was cutting weight versus losing weight. We'll see you all next week. Stay tuned. Oh, yes. Before I go, the Pit.tv. If you want to sign up for classes, if you want to go through the Pit Hawaiian Kempo system, there are some spots available and space is limited. That's two things I should mention. So the Pit.tv,
Yeah.
check it out. You can sign up, or you can also audit the classes if you're not sure. I'm not sure if this is for me. You can audit the classes. I forgot what the price is, but for less than it costs you,
Not much.
less than what it costs you for an okay dinner, not even a nice dinner. You can audit the classes.
No, not even okay dinner. No, it's less than it costs you for two trips, two people at Starbucks buying a coffee for someone and you. Yeah.
Then two people at Starbucks.
It's very affordable. Very affordable.
You can audit the classes to see if it's something you like.
And Glover's in town, guys. Glover's in town.
Yeah.
Glover's been training with us. He's in town.
Yeah, I saw the video you posted on your Instagram. Oh, yeah, the Instagram. You can also follow on Instagram. You can type in John Hackleman, and he will come up. And the questions you're asking right here, you can ask him on Instagram. He's a pretty approachable.
Ask me.
Yeah.
Ask me, guys. All right, man. Well, see you guys. Thanks for coming. Stay safe out there. Don't let anyone take your fucking lunch money.